And I think what we're seeing today, the reason why it's super important to learn how to grow our own food is just to be empowered to be able to make choices that are healthy. And there are insanely high rates of heart disease and diabetes, obesity, food-related illnesses, as well as allergies. They're just skyrocketing, and I think that's happening because we have moved so far away from food production. My name is Devorah Brous, and I'm the executive director of Nitiya, and I'm a mom. So Nitiya means to grow, and it's in the first chapter of the Tanakh, the Bible. And we are working to convert unused land at faith-based institutions, churches, mosques, synagogues, faith communities across the board, to come back to values of stewardship and earth care. So we were founded 7 years ago by Rabbi Noah Farkas, and we have spent the past 7 years working on installing institutional scale gardens at these different communities where we have partners.
I'm Emily Bills, and I run the Urban Studies program at Woodbury University. A food desert indicates an area in which it is difficult for a family, particularly a working family, through public transportation or through pedestrian access, to get to a food source, whether it's a large grocery store or even a smaller market or even your local sort of push cart guy who comes along with fresh fruits and vegetables to buy food that's affordable and that's healthy for your family. You may have a larger big box retail grocery store in your community, but if there are not healthy options there, for me, that is a food desert situation.
We've put together 32 gardens, and we've taught hundreds of workshops. We have a bunch of different programs designed to make the connection between where your food comes from and how it got there sustainably. We're really interested in the cycle, everything that starts from the source. So just the ideas of connecting back with the land and farming that land consciously using urban agroecology principles and ideas to farm sustainably and organically without spilling toxins into the soil and destroying the soil food web, and without harming our health or the health of people who are working in the gardens, the farm workers and the laborers. We're very interested in food production, and then how do we make food more easily accessible? And when we offer food at the faith centers, what happens to the leftover food?
When I developed the Urban Studies program, I was interested in a number of different ways that students could engage questions of how our cities grow, how they function, and how we can be functional participating members of cities and how we can have a real impact on the spaces around us. And one of the most important ways of doing that is thinking about food production, how food comes in and out of our cities, how we shop, how we make decisions about what goes into our bodies, because all of that has a sort of 360-degree impact on both urban conditions, but also rural conditions, right? We're all sort of connected in that way. I developed the class Food in the City, and with the subheading, "Are you going to eat that?" with a question mark, because I thought it would be kind of a provocative draw for students to think about, oh, what is this thing before I put it in my mouth? Who produced it? How did they produce it? How long did it take to get to my plate? What was that process? So really everything surrounding the thing that we're going to pick up and eat, or we're going to purchase at the school cafeteria, or we're going to grab from that fast food restaurant on the way to class. Food is part of all of our lives. It's a very personal thing. It's a cultural thing. We grow up thinking about food and how it's part of our family, our preferences, things that we don't like. College students are young adults, and they can pay their rent, and they get themselves to school, and they do the work that they need to do to be fantastic learners in our university environment. Many of them haven't thought about the food that they're putting in their bodies. So they watch a documentary film and they start to read about it, and there is an immediate response that sometimes can be quite visceral. What have I been eating my whole life? What have my parents taught me about food? What do I know about the people who are producing my food and the conditions that they experience? What are the laws and the legislation surrounding things so simple as like the taco truck that's on my corner that I love? To see students start to ask questions and to bring those questions outside of the classroom to their families, to their communities, to their places of worship even, to their siblings, to other people that they come in contact with, to their architecture studio classmates, to bring this outside of my classroom and start to ask those questions and to have those conversations. There's nothing more that you can ask for as a professor.
I think it's ridiculously fun to connect with your food and to know that you grew it yourself. And I see that for kids, they will choose to eat food if they know what it is. If they know that those kale chips that we're having for dinner are the ones that they harvested from their own garden, they're more likely to want to eat something green. Otherwise, it's like, ugh, I don't want to touch that. If I know that on my yard I'm able to grow, 40% of the food that my family loves to eat, then I know that they're more likely to want to eat healthy food instead of just, hitting Sharkies every night. I feel more comfortable as a mom to know that the lettuces that I'm giving my kids haven't been sprayed with 12 different layers of toxins, pesticides, biocides, miticides. All that stuff is being ingested, and I think it's like it's really fun to watch what happens to the kids when they go outside barefoot and they grab a tomato from the vine and they pop it into their mouths, and there's a little dirt on the side of their faces. My kids are healthy. They have my 4.5-year-old son has been to the doctor once for a sickness. So and his sister is 7. She's been to the doctor twice in her life.
Well, it was really as simple as a children's play date between Devorah's children and my own. Didn't really know her well. Sitting at her dining room table, we found we have a lot in common in terms of things that drive us. Seedling Sprout ends up being this really wonderful opportunity for parents and children to come together outdoors, doing some things that I'll call us city folks don't typically do. It's a good way for children and parents to come together, and I look at it as not only the outdoors is explored, but our connection to it. One class in particular that Seedling Sprout has is about trees and the fruits of them, which ones have pits and which ones have, hard exteriors and things like that. And I remember telling Devorah about how as young as 6 years old, we were having droughts in Southern California when I grew up, and I was looking for ways to save water. Both of my parents gardened, and so there I was creating underground hydration systems, out of aquarium tubing and siphoning it out of a tank and things like that. So when I heard about what she did, I got very excited. My family, for generations, going back, it's documented hundreds of years ago has always been farmers. My own mother was born on the farm, and to be disconnected from growing things hurt, I think. I think I really missed it. So this is really nice. I don't want the knowledge to end with me. I want to pass it on to my daughters.
It just works for me to know that we're not slaves to a system, a food system that thinks first and foremost about profit and shelf life of the produce. So many of us are getting sick.
Do we need to follow the same kind of strategies that we've been looking at for perhaps 50 years? Or do we have new approaches that we can think about now? Do we have to use antibiotics on such a large scale? Or can we start to do experiments within some of these large corporations that start to scale back some of those antibiotics and see if there are other production methods that they can use? And can they look to our small farmers for partnership on that? I come at this, of course, as an educator, and there's lots of different ways that you can become involved in food advocacy. And I think for me, it really starts in the classroom because, of course, I am an educator, and that's how I hope to give back to my community. And my community here, of course, is Woodbury University. Students come to my class and they take this class and they start to ask questions. And then, of course, they talk to their fellow classmates, and then they graduate and they go out into the world and they start to ask questions throughout their life about what they're eating and what they're putting in their body and how it was produced.